Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, France's military base in Ivory Coast near Abidjan will be handed back in January. An announcement from the Ivorian leader Alassane Ouattara at the start of the new year about the timeline for the handover, making it the latest country on the continent to send French troops out. Also, Zimbabwe's blueberry sector is thriving, and as one of the top growers in Africa, it sees a sweet $100 million a year in export revenue. But we hear from one of the few black farmers who've managed to break their way into the lucrative sector. And we hear from some of the young artists in Benin breathing new life and sounds into voodoo traditions. Using poetry, rap, and gospel, they're turning social media into a powerful tool for cultural transmission. But first, French forces will be pulling out of Ivory Coast by the end of January. President Alassane Ouattara set the timeframe in his New Year's Eve speech on Tuesday, making Ivory Coast the latest African country to set up the exit of French forces. But unlike the drawdown in, say, Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, the withdrawal from Ivory Coast has been orchestrated hand in hand with Paris. Emily Boyle talks us through.
French troops stationed in Abidjan are spending their last few days in Ivory Coast's largest city. Nearly 1,000 soldiers are currently deployed at the 43rd Infantry Marine Battalion, fighting jihadists in the Sahel region. On Tuesday, the Ivorian president announced they would be withdrawing from the country.
We've decided on the coordinated and organised withdrawal of French forces from Ivory Coast. Thus, the camp of the 43rd Marine Infantry Battalion in Port Boué will be handed over to the armed forces of Ivory Coast starting in January 2025.
At the same time, Senegal's president has officially set an expiry date for the presence of French soldiers in his country.
I have instructed the Minister for the Armed Forces to propose a new doctrine for cooperation in defense and security, involving the end of all the foreign military presences in Senegal from 2025.
They are just the latest of several former French colonies in West Africa to demand the withdrawal of French troops. France decided to reconfigure its military presence on the continent after being ousted from Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger. On the 28th of November, Chad, France's last foothold in the Sahel, also suspended its military agreement with Paris. The fire military base was handed over to the Chadian authorities on the 26th of December.
Emily Boyle there for us. Now, 13 Congolese soldiers have been sentenced to death by a military tribunal on charges including murder, looting and cowardice. The capital punishments were handed down in the town of Lubero in North Kivu province as the Congolese army tries to crack down on discipline within its stressed ranks amidst a 3-year conflict with M23 insurgents in the east of the country. Several troops have reportedly been fleeing their battle positions, contributing to the military's loss of ground to the militia. All of the convicted defendants pled not guilty and have until the end of the week to appeal their sentences. Now, there's been an outpouring of sympathy and outrage in Senegal for a 9-year-old girl who became pregnant after being abused by a religious tutor. She's just a couple of months away now from her due date, and for many, the lack of comment from the country's leaders has just added to the feeling of injustice. Many are calling for laws preventing rape victims from having an abortion to be scrapped. Caitlin Kelly tells us more.
At a reception centre in Pekin, a suburb of Dakar, the Association of Senegalese Jurists provide legal support to women in need.
Very often, victims of sexual violence or rape come to us for assistance.
These lawyers are representing the 9-year-old girl who became pregnant as a result of being raped by her Quran teacher in Jal Fadiouf, 100 kilometres south of Dakar, The child is expected to deliver via caesarean section in February, though not without risks, say the association. The case has mobilised activists in Senegal on the right to abortion for the victims of rape and incest.
We're still in favor of punishing illegal abortion. Now, we want to see mechanisms put in place so that victims of rape and incest can have an abortion, because that's a fundamental right. A 9-year-old girl forced to become pregnant is very traumatic.
Senegal ratified the Maputo Protocol 20 years ago, which recognises access to medicalised abortion as a fundamental right for women in cases of rape and incest. Rights groups are calling on authorities to honour this commitment.
We are optimistic that the government will step up. All we need is an implementing decree so that a new, much more binding law can be passed as soon as possible with the new assembly.
The government did not respond to France 24's request for an interview. A recent report by the International Federation for Human Rights revealed that abortion and infanticide are the second most common reasons why women and girls are jailed in the country.
Well, Kenya's president acknowledged that security forces have been abusing citizens. In his New Year address, William Ruto admitted that cases of excessive and extrajudicial actions by security forces were undeniable. Police have been accused of abducting and illegally detaining dozens of people ever since anti-government demonstrations first erupted in June and were met with a harsh crackdown. On Monday, a court ordered police to immediately and unconditionally free 5 men who'd reportedly been illegally taken. Police have denied involvement in the disappearances. Now, Zimbabwe's blueberry sector is thriving. It's one of the top growers in Africa, raking in over $100 million annually in export revenue. Now, there are only 22 farmers driving the capital-intensive sector, though, and very few of them are black. Major barriers to entry include the $80,000 per hectare estimated investment, as banks are not willing to cough up such huge sums. Nyasha Chingono headed out for a look for us.
It's a sweet season for Zimbabwe's blueberry sector, which has been on the resurgence over the past years. Thanks to friendly trade policies from the likes of the EU, the UK and East Asia, Zimbabwe has found its footing again on the world market. It has also benefited from increased private sector investment into growing the crop. But 20 years after the land reform program, which was touted as a game changer for the local black farmer, we only have a few black farmers taking up this crop. Despite having access to land, most black farmers do not have the requisite finances to take up such crops.
So again, with blueberries, it's a very highly capital-intensive commercial value chain. So it suits a lot of newer farmers to get into the seasonal, the quicker turnover crops. But that's not to say that anybody's discouraging anybody. What will happen is that make your money on the quicker turnover, and then when you have the investment ready, then look at blueberries.
This farm, situated 100 kilometers west of the capital Harare, is a shining example of a successful black-owned enterprise. Willa Zereva, the owner of Talana Farm, started this project from scratch using personal savings.
It's been difficult. We started very small, and we're still relatively small, by the way. We started with 3 hectares. That was funded from personal savings. If our government wants to get more people to participate, and I'm not talking about the local people, they've got to then put together structured finance, which is backed by government, in order to allow more and more blacks to get involved. Otherwise, it's just going to continue with those who have got the means, and they get support as well from outside the country.
With successful examples like this farm, there is hope that more and more indigenous farmers will take up the crop.
Now, young artists in Benin are breathing new life into Vodun traditions. Through slam poetry, rap and gospel, they've been turning social media into a powerful tool for spreading the word, a movement that aligns with the government's push for a cultural revival. Our team sent us this report.
Among Guinon, a top Beninese slam poet, is focused on crafting an anthem for the Vodou Days cultural festival. He has called the tunes Miwa, meaning come in the local language of Fongwe.
Qui suis-je? D'où je viens? Qui serais-je à l'âge où on a plus de souvenirs que de rêves? Il y a un besoin de se raconter.
There's a need to tell our own story. We need to stop letting others speak for us. If you're not a Vodun practitioner, don't speak about Vodun. We're building a new narrative about who we are.
The evening goes beyond the Vodou religion and also celebrates the traditions of many African and diasporic cultures. Throughout the space, artists and audiences explore and exchange heritage.
Browsing online, we see how little documentation there is about our culture. With Generation Z's power and our command of social media, it's crucial we share these voices and let others discover us.
From rejection to reconnection, many subjects and perspectives are explored. Sergent Marcus does so by combining slam, sacred music, and gospel. And this fusion between rich tradition and contemporary trends resonates beyond the continent.
Le vaudou et le gospel, pour moi, ne sont pas du tout antinomiques, c'est de la...
Vodun and gospel go hand in hand. It's the continuity, even the continuum of African spirituality. When our ancestors were taken as slaves to the Americas, they held on to their roots.
Garder leurs rites, ils ont gardé leur savoir-faire endogène, culturel, spirituel.
From New York's Carnegie Hall to theaters in France, the groundbreaking band, BIM, the Benin International Music Hall, carries these new sounds worldwide. Their blend of rock, rap, and Vodou rhythms wins over audiences wherever they are found.
Well, finally, we'll leave you with some festive images from across the continent as it welcomed in the new year. Pictures of the top-class fireworks show in Nairobi as the night sky was lit up to welcome in 2025. Dakar too displayed a resplendent skyline as the Senegalese capital put on a delightful show for those celebrating below. And in Johannesburg, South Africans also came together to see out the old and in with the new. So with just these few snapshots of the freshest day of the year across the continent, I wish you goodbye for now. And again, the very best for 2025. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.
France 24, your economy explained.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.